All right, everyone, welcome into my Knicks-Pistons preview. It's a long time coming since I've talked Knicks playoffs. It's been about 11 months since the Knicks were eliminated on May 19th by the Pacers. I remember the day, and you probably understand why. It was a very traumatic day in my life. But yeah, I digress. It has been a long time, and it's something that normally I'd be really excited about, considering the lack of success that I've seen the Knicks have over the course of my life. Again, this is the fifth time in my life, 24 years old, that I've witnessed the Knicks in the playoffs. Third time in the last 4 years, which is terrific, awesome, and something that I'm trying not to take for granted. It's awesome to have a team that has as high of expectations as this Knicks team does going into the playoffs. But with high expectations comes a high likelihood of being completely let down. And as a Yankees fan, I could tell you how badly that sucks. And honestly, I take a team that sucks over a team that has high expectations that never meets them. And hopefully that is not the case for this Knicks team. But there's plenty more to discuss at a later date if the Knicks do advance as they're projected and favored to do. We could talk Knicks Celtics, you can talk whatever. But that is another topic for another day. Today, going to be focusing on Knicks Pistons. The Pistons 44-38. I think top three turnarounds in NBA history. They fired Monty Williams with multiple years left on his deal. He's coaching a high school team right now, making tens of millions of dollars a year. They bring in JB Bickerstaff, who was fired from the Cavaliers. He comes in, completely turns around this franchise. They get a resurgent year from Cade Cunningham, who was the favorite for most improved player up until like a week ago, and Dyson Daniels is probably going to win it now. And for good reason, a number one overall pick should never be, up for a most improved player award because of the high expectations that he had coming into the league. But this Pistons team is led by Cade Cunningham, a guy who absolutely dominated the Knicks in the 4 games that they played against each other. I'm going to get into that in a second. But this Pistons team, again, is complete turnaround, not a team that is considered a laughingstock in the league. They lost 20-plus games in a row last year. A completely different team. They went out, they hired Trajan Langdon to be their GM, the president of basketball operations. He went out and signed a bunch of veteran guys. He got Malik Beasley. He got Tim Hardaway Jr. He got Tobias Harris, in which I think was an idiotic contract, but that's not what's important here. The fact that he has contributed to this team this year, he's been a major help for them getting to 44-38, this number 6 seed in the Eastern Conference, which is a stunning turn of events from what we witnessed last year. The Knicks, of course, are 51-31, a team that has struggled mightily against the top teams in the league, 0-10 against the Thunder, the Cavs, and the Celtics, who the 3 teams, in my opinion, who have a chance to win the championship this year. They have not been good against big teams. There are players on the Knicks team who have not been big, or have not played well in big games. The playoffs, every game is big. So there are a lot of unanswered questions that we will hopefully have answered over the course of the next week or so against the Pistons. But let's get into it. Let's talk about this series. I want to discuss a multitude of things here, but I want to start with this. What is the Knicks' number one priority in the series? Nothing else comes close. Slowing down Cade Cunningham, who has blossomed into a top 15 player in the league, something that I saw coming, a guy who is just unbelievable. He's one of the most talented guys in the league. His size is maybe his biggest strong suit. He's averaged 26 points this year, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists. Easily a top 15 player in the NBA this year. Easily. He's 6'6", plays like he's 6'8", a good, solid defender, someone who could create for his teammates. He is an all-around package. Like, he is someone that can lead his team as a number one option to a championship one day. Not to say the Pistons are anywhere near that, but he is a 1A star. And one of the top 3 players in the series. I think it goes Brunson, Cat, and Cade Cunningham. Of course, that can switch based on what we're going to see in this series. But going into the series, that's how it is. So the Pistons have this guy, Cade Cunningham, who shot 56% against the Knicks this year in the 4 games that they played against each other. 56%. 52% from three. And it's not like he shot 1 or 2 threes a game. I believe he shot 25 threes. He was 13 for 25 against the Knicks this season from three. 65.7% true shooting against the Knicks. He is dominated no matter who you put on him. I saw the stats with OG Anunoby guarding him. It was only 5 minutes, I believe, the entire season. He was shooting over 50% against OG too. But I think for the majority of the time, these teams have faced off against each other. It's been Mikal Bridges or Josh Hart, or whomever. They've not done a good enough job. They haven't. So the number one priority for the Knicks in this series, and again, it's not even close, is stopping Cade Cunningham, slowing him down, not allowing him to get so easily to his spots to hit those easy jumpers, to get to the basket. To have another guy ready to help whenever Cade Cunningham gets into the high post, no matter who's guarding him. They're going to need to double as much as possible against Cade Cunningham. Besides that, I don't know how much talent this team has. I really don't. As I said, they acquired some veteran guys, with playoff experience. Tobias Harris, it's not like he's gone far in the playoffs, but he has experience. Tim Hardaway Jr. on the Mavs last year. Like, there are guys on this team, this Pistons team. I'm not discrediting. I'm not saying that these guys are not good enough, to be complementary pieces in a winning playoff series. I'm not saying that. They 100% are. They've got the pieces. And they also have the draft picks to go out and acquire another star. That is something that we could see down the line. To me, does this Pistons team have enough talent to even compete in this series against the Knicks? No. But besides Cade Cunningham, this team's biggest strength is their physicality, is their toughness. The fact that these guys will get in your face, they might start a few fights throughout the course of the series. Isaiah Stewart is considered one of the biggest thugs in the league. He even went at LeBron a couple of years ago. He is effed in the head. Those are not the type of guys that you want to face off against, especially if you're a Knicks team that lacks a tough identity like we saw last year. That's something I'm going to get to. But for right now, Cade Cunningham, their physicality and their toughness, and number 3 is their depth. Off their bench is Malik Beasley, who I set the record for most threes from a bench player in NBA history. He should be the 6th man of the year. He won't be because he started 18 games. I believe Peyton Pritchard is the favorite for that award. But Malik Beasley averaging 16 plus points per game. Probably you could consider him the second option on this team next to Cade Cunningham, even though he doesn't start the majority of the time. He has blossomed alongside Cade Cunningham into an amazing offensive option. An amazing offensive option. Like, he's not going to kill you from anywhere else besides 3. He's shooting 43% from the field this year, but shooting 42% from 3. And that's off a crazy amount of volume. He's not taking 2 to 3 threes a game. He's taking double-digit threes in the majority of games. So, listen, I think that the Knicks, where they lack, the Pistons excel it. Besides the star power. The Knicks have the star power. The Pistons don't. The Pistons have the physical mentality. The Knicks don't. The Pistons have the depth. The Knicks don't really have that. Unless Landry Shamet continues his solid play going into the series, the Knicks will be at a disadvantage in terms of depth. Not only, do the Pistons have these veterans, as complementary pieces, they also have a Sor Thompson who is a freak of nature athletically, and on the defensive end, you see how high he gets up. They also have Ron Holland, who's a rookie. He's only averaging around 6 points per game, but someone who has progressed, throughout the course of this year. This Pistons team, they finished a lot better than they started. They've been consistently good the entire season. When you look at from top to bottom, each and every single one of these guys has progressed over the course of the year. So, yes, you're facing off against guys who have a lack of experience going into this series. But again, they do have some veteran pieces who have been amazing as complementary guys on this team. Like, straight up. If they didn't go out and acquire Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, and Tim Hardaway Jr., this team's not even making the playoffs. This team is not as bad as they were last year, but they're nowhere near the playoffs. So, and it's not just Cade and those guys. Jalen Duren's awesome. I love Jalen Duren, another physical freak of nature, athletic as hell. He is going to cause problems against Karl-Anthony Towns on the boards. Like, that is something that I'm concerned about 100%. But the Pistons, listen, they are not a team to be taken lightly. Like, as I keep mentioning here, the Knicks lack the physical mentality. They lack the toughness. They traded away Dante DiVincenzo. They traded away Julius Randle, two of the toughest guys in the team. They lost Isaiah Hartenstein in free agency. Those three guys defined the Knicks' identity last season more than anyone else on the team. They were the embodiment of who the Knicks were last year. They were the embodiment of why the Knicks were so successful last year. The Knicks without Dante DiVincenzo, without Julius Randle, their biggest Achilles heel, in my opinion, and apologies, I don't know this exact stat, but I saw if the Knicks take 20 or more threes or whatever it is, they have a much better record. They lack volume three-point shooters. I look at a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns, who is considered one of the best three-point shooters of big men in NBA history. He's averaging only 5 threes a game. He's shooting 42% from three, but he's barely taking any threes. It's not like Jalen Brunson's able to get off a bunch of threes a game. Mikal Bridges can't shoot threes from anywhere else besides the corners. OG Anunoby, he's not a catch-and-shoot guy. He can be that. The Knicks lack volume shooting. And it's something that concerns me going into a playoff series where if they're not taking threes, then they're going to be taking the ball to the basket, and they will be, attacked physically. They are not matched up well in terms of the physicality against this Pistons team. And as much as I'd like to see the Knicks go out of their way to launch threes, I just don't think that that's a likely occurrence here. So the Knicks have the advantage talent-wise. There's no doubt about it. I've said it plenty of times throughout the season. This is the most talented starting five in Knicks franchise history. Of course, I wasn't alive to experience the 70s. I know about the 90s teams. I know those rosters. Sucked. Objectively sucked. Not good offensively. Like, yeah, they had the physicality, and that's what made them so great and what allowed them to go so deep in playoff series against the Bulls, series that they probably could have won if they had better offensive options. It's why they got to the 1994 NBA Finals. Because that tough, hard-nosed, physical mentality. Something that the Knicks threw away when they traded for Mikal Bridges and they traded for Karl-Anthony Towns. So, they kind of sold their souls. Quite literally. They sold their souls for two guys that, again, make up the most talented starting five in Knicks franchise history. I think that's objective at this point. So going into the series, the Knicks have all the star power they could possibly hope for. They have the clutch player of the year, likely, in Jalen Brunson. They have one of the most unique offensive options in the NBA in Karl-Anthony Towns. Something they have that, is as polarizing as anything across all of the sports landscape, and New York sports specifically, is a head coach in Tom Thibodeau who is extremely stubborn with his rotation and with his different lineups that he throws out. You need to prove over the course of 10 to 15 games that you are good enough to crack his rotation. 1 or 2 games is not going to be enough. A couple of duds might be enough for you to not play over the course of a couple of weeks. Someone that we have seen finally step up offensively off the bench is Landry Shamet. A guy who had an amazing stretch in that last final game a couple of weeks ago against the Pistons, where he hit 2 threes and drew an offensive foul. Tom Thibodeau yanked him from the game right after that. So you catch my drift. This isn't just a Landry Shamet issue. isn't just a Tyler Kolek issue, which is, polarizing in and of itself. It's a Tom Thibodeau issue, something that, again, has a lot of fans up in arms about who Tom Thibodeau is as a head coach, what he provides you, the ceiling that this Knicks team has with him as the head coach. That's another story for another day. We'll be talking about it 100%. If the Knicks somehow find a way to lose this series, I'm not going to get directly into that. I'm going to hold out hope that the Knicks can get past this. I doubt it, but again, we're going to talk about that at another point down the road if the Knicks do make the second round. If they don't, we're going to be talking about Tom Thibodeau needing to get fired. But one lineup that I think is going to be essential to this series is Mitchell Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns playing alongside of each other. We saw what the Timberwolves did by trading an unbelievable amount of assets for Rudy Gobert. Why did they do that, you may ask? Because they didn't trust Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5 defensively, and they thought he was a better fit at the 4. Lo and behold, they were correct. They made the conference finals last year. And Karl-Anthony Towns is one of the major reasons why. Because he didn't have that defensive responsibility on the other end to guard centers, to defend the paint. They were able to put him on a guy on the perimeter and allow Rudy Gobert to roam the paint and be the paint protector. With a bunch of solid defensive defenders around, defensive defenders, that's great. Defensive options around him. Jaden McDaniels, top 10 perimeter defender in the league. Anthony Edwards, no defensive slouch himself. What does this Knicks team have? Solid perimeter defenders besides Jalen Brunson. When you play Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5 with Jalen Brunson as the point guard, it leaves you completely susceptible to Cat getting destroyed playing drop coverage. He's not very good at it, but the Knicks continue to play Cat defensively in drop coverage, with Jalen Brunson as the other option, the pick and roll. And opposing teams are absolutely destroying them. If Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson are involved in the same pick and roll action defensively, you might as well just put the points on the board. It's that easy for the opposing team to get easy baskets. Having Mitchell Robinson roaming the paint alongside Karl-Anthony Towns allows Mitch to be the one defensively involved in the pick and roll action. Even if it's Jalen Brunson that they get involved in that, you still got the backup option there of Mitchell Robinson. And do you know what having Mitchell Robinson defend the paint affords you? A lot more flexibility when it comes to your ability to switch. And it's not the be-all, end-all. If OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, I assume Josh Hart would be out of the lineup if Mitch is going to be playing. But Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, it's way easier if they get beat for the Knicks to defend the paint. Because from time to time, that's going to happen. I don't care how good of a defender you are. You're not able to defend the best players in the NBA time and time again. We see these pickup runs. These guys are so good offensively. They don't miss. So it takes a really good defender to stifle these guys, but even the best defenders aren't able to guard them 10 times out of 10. But it's the fact that if you beat an OG Anunoby, if you beat a Mikal Bridges with Karl-Anthony Towns in the paint, you've got some free points. I'm not saying that Karl-Anthony Towns on his own as a one-on-one defender is not a bad defender. He's a pretty solid defender. But in the pick and roll, he's completely inept. Defending the paint, he's inept. So I look at that rotation, and I got some stats here. With Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson on the floor at the same time, they've done it in 10 separate games, only 47 minutes together. So this is not a big sample size. It's less than a full game. 9.2 net rating. One of the best offensive rebounding percentages out of any two-man rotation on the Knicks. So, listen, it's not like you could sit here and tell me, oh, well, offensively, they're not 118 or 120 offensive rating. The defensive rating isn't exactly where you want it to be, around 110, but that's better than the Knicks have given you all season long. And that shouldn't be a shock to anyone. Mitchell Robinson in the lineup, the Knicks are a completely different team defensively. There should be no excuses as to why Mitchell Robinson has barely been playing. And if you want to say that Mitchell Robinson has been eased back in. He's been back for almost 2 months, guys. Almost 2 months at this point. And he hasn't played back-to-backs. I thought it was a good sign against the Cavs. They played him 33 minutes. I think it was important for him to prove to Tom Thibodeau that he could hold up over the course of a long game. And, of course, against the Cavs, there was no bigger factor in that series 2 years ago in the first round than Mitchell Robinson. He absolutely dominated Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. And it appears that won't be changing. Like, Evan Mobley he's hopefully will be the defensive player of the year. And hopefully it's not Draymond Green. I don't think he deserves it whatsoever. But Evan Mobley, as a defensive player, great, terrific. As a rebounder, against bigger, stronger, more physical guys, he's not the same player. We saw that 2 years ago. It's not like Evan Mobley has put on 50 pounds. He's still thin as hell. Mitchell Robinson may have lost a few pounds, but he's still the same, brute force in the paint, specifically on the offensive glass. He's still unstoppable. He's still unbelievable at positioning himself to get any offensive rebound. I mean, he leaves a little bit to be desired on the defensive end with rebounding, but, it's not as difficult to defend, or it's not as difficult to rebound on the defensive end as it is on the offensive end. And that's where Mitchell Robinson's biggest, positives lie. Like, that's it. Defensively and on the offensive glass. And put back dunks and alley-oops whenever he gets thrown them. I need to see more of that rotation. Like, I will be infuriated if, one, OG Anunoby's not guarding Cade Cunningham to start game one. Okay. Number two, if Mitchell Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns are not playing at least 15 minutes a game together. And if that happens, you may have an issue with this, but Precious Achiuwa is going to get more minutes. He's going to be the backup center. Mitch isn't the backup center, and he's playing the majority of his minutes with Karl-Anthony Towns. Precious is going to get some run at the 5. Whether you agree with that lineup or not, that's just the way it is. If you're going to get that desired lineup of Cat and Mitch together, which I need to see. I need to see it. Against a team that's this physical, you cannot have Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5. You need a guy to match this physicality of this Pistons team. As I said, one of their biggest strong suits. They rebound extremely well defensively on the defensive side. How have the Knicks been successful in recent years? They grab offensive rebounds. They lost Isaiah Hartenstein. It changed the complexity of this team. Changed everything. They still have one of the best offensive rebounders in the NBA. He's number 2 in offensive rebound percentage since he came back from his injury, next to Steven Adams. It's Mitch. Still Mitch, who is probably still not at 100%, even though he's been back for a while at this point. He's still working his way back up. The fact that he hasn't played back-to-backs tells you all you need to know. The fact that he played 33 minutes against the Cavs and then sat out 2 days later against the Nets tells you all you need to know. That the Knicks are comfortable playing in big minutes now. But that he's still working his way back. So I can't foresee a circumstance in which Tom Thibodeau doesn't utilize that lineup more. And again, as I said, I'll be infuriated if we don't see that. But it's very important the Knicks get out to a good start in this series, of course. They need to set the tone in game one. This Knicks team is much, much more talented than the Pistons. And there should be no excuses to why the Knicks can't win this series in 4 or 5 games. I'm not downplaying who the Pistons are, their identity. I'm not downplaying the success they've had this year. What I'm telling you is that the majority of their team doesn't have much, if any, experience in the playoffs. They are not very top-heavy. They don't have nearly as much talent as the Knicks. My prediction for this series is the Knicks win in 6. And it's a hard-fought, physical series in which the Knicks get dominated, physically. Like, I don't see how the Knicks are going to be able to match who the Pistons are. This Detroit tough mentality. It's going to be extremely difficult for this Knicks team to match that. They need to win their own way. They need to get the ball to OG Anunoby. Against the Celtics, OG barely touched the ball in the first 6 minutes of the game. He got up maybe one shot. And that was after OG had dominated offensively in the prior 10 games, averaging 26 points per game. The second the Knicks fell back into their stagnant offensive tendency with Jalen Brunson controlling the basketball for the majority of the time, that is when OG Anunoby was phased out of the offense. If you want to win this series handedly, if you want to put up a fight against the Boston Celtics, you got to let OG be OG. You got to let him be as equal as possible to Karl-Anthony Towns and not Jalen Brunson. You like to get Jalen Brunson more touches, obviously, and you want him to be the main guy. The team is built around him. You need him to cook. But if Karl-Anthony Towns is not effective offensively, he's got to take a step back. Allow the spacing to be there with him on the three-point line, because even if he's shooting poorly from the three-point line, you got to respect it. You got to respect it. So I got the Knicks in 6. I got to see Mitch and I got to see Cat on the floor at the same time. I have to see it. If Cade Cunningham is contained in the series, the Knicks won't have a tough time winning it. Cade goes off, shoots 56% from the field, averages 30-plus points like he has all year. This series could go 6 or 7. That's why I have it at 6 or 7. Jalen Brunson's still not 100%. Karl-Anthony Towns needs to shoot more threes. Shoot the freaking three. Stop being hesitant on the three-point line. Josh Hart should not be playing 40 minutes a game. He cannot be playing 40 minutes a game. And how bad he is offensively. He will 100% be out in the lineup when Mitch and Cat are playing together. Amazing. Terrific. You can't have Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson on the floor at the same time. That's just a fact. So let's see how the cookie crumbles here. Let's see how the Knicks fare against a team which doesn't have much experience, which is nowhere near as talented as the Knicks. And let's see what Tom Thibodeau has up his sleeve. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the Knicks have no chance. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm expecting the Knicks to be inept in the series. I have them in 6 because my expectations are a little, tempered, wherever the word is. But I still see the Knicks winning the series and going into a Boston series after a tough series against the Pistons and having some difficulty. So that'll do it for the preview here. Again, as I said, more content coming your way this week. I'll be in Vegas this weekend. I'm going to have to watch games 1 and 2. The first, I don't even know how I'm going to watch. The second one, I'm going to be on a plane, which sucks. It is what it is. But I'll be locked in. More content coming your way. So stay tuned for all that. And thank you all for tuning in. And let's go Knicks. Let's go Knicks.